a man who lived so long in silence that he forgot what it felt like to share his world with anyone. But one day, out of the burning desert, 5 Apache women appeared at his gate, and in that single moment, his entire destiny shifted. This is the story of how loneliness shattered and how fate chose a brand new path. If you love powerful frontier stories, make sure you subscribe, share this video, and leave a comment below. Now let's begin this story. He had lived alone for so long that silence had become a second heartbeat inside his home. Jonah Avery, a man shaped by dust storms and heartbreak, believed nothing new could ever cross the boundaries of his quiet existence. Until the day 5 Apache women appeared at the edge of his ranch, standing against the burning horizon like a vision carved out of heat and fate. Their presence felt unreal at first, as if the desert itself had decided to deliver a message he was not prepared to hear, yet could not turn away from. Jonah had been repairing a broken fence when he heard soft footsteps behind him, not the loud, careless walk of men, but quiet, purposeful steps. When he turned, his breath caught in his throat. 5 women stood together, covered in travel dust, their expressions calm but exhausted. The woman at the front met Jonah's eyes with a steady gaze. Her name was Tala. She did not carry fear, only the quiet strength of someone who had endured more than she would ever say aloud. Tala explained that they had been traveling for days, searching for safety after conflict struck the outskirts of their homeland. Jonah listened without interrupting, unable to shake the strange pull he felt toward them. They were not desperate, but determined, not lost, but searching for a place where they could breathe without fear. When she finally asked if they could rest on his land for a night, Jonah felt something inside him shift. It was not just the right thing to do. It felt like destiny knocking softly on his door. He welcomed them through his gate, offering water, food, and a shaded place to rest. The women moved with grace, helping one another, never complaining. Jonah watched them quietly, noticing the exhaustion in their faces, but also the unmistakable resilience in their eyes. While they ate, they spoke among themselves in their melodic language, voices carrying like wind chimes in the warm air. Tala translated small pieces for him, never oversharing, but always speaking with a calm that made Jonah feel strangely anchored. As the sun dipped behind the cliffs, Jonah found himself sitting near the fire with them. The desert sky turned deep purple, stars scattering like silver dust. The warmth of the fire flickered across their faces, and Jonah felt a rare comfort settle over him. He had spent years avoiding connection, believing loneliness was safer than loss. Yet here he was, surrounded by 5 strangers who brought an unfamiliar softness into the night. For the first time in years, he realized he didn't mind sharing his space or his silence. When he offered them the barn to sleep in, they asked to stay by the fire a little longer. Jonah agreed and handed out blankets. He watched as Tala adjusted the firewood with practiced ease. Her presence was steady, grounded, almost soothing. Jonah didn't understand why he felt drawn to her, but it was undeniable. Something about her calm eyes and quiet strength made the ranch feel different, less empty, less forgotten. She noticed his stare and smiled gently, a smile that slid past his defenses with ease. By morning, Jonah expected them to leave. He even tried to convince himself that the ranch would return to its old stillness. But when he stepped outside, he found them helping repair the corral fence. They moved like a team, lifting posts, tying wire, working with natural rhythm. Jonah tried to stop them, insisting they owed him nothing, but Tala only shook her head and said a place that offers safety deserves care. Her words echoed inside him long after she returned to her work, stirring a memory of the man he used to be. As the days passed, the ranch transformed. The women helped gather herbs, cleaned water troughs, prepared meals with spices Jonah had never tasted, and repaired old structures he had ignored for years. The ranch felt alive again, filled with movement and purpose. Jonah realized that, for the first time since his wife passed, he woke each morning with anticipation rather than habit. His world, once hollow and predictable, now felt unpredictable in the most comforting way. The women weren't simply visitors anymore. They were becoming part of the rhythm of the land. One evening, Tala joined Jonah by the river. The water shimmered beneath the fading sunlight. Jonah confessed that he had grown used to silence, believing it protected him. Tala listened with an expression that saw deeper than his words. You have carried loneliness as if it were a duty, she told him softly, but no one is meant to live with only memories. Her voice was firm yet gentle. Jonah felt something inside him loosen, a knot he had tied years ago. Her presence made him feel seen in a way he had not felt in decades. By the end of the second week, he realized he didn't want them to leave. The ranch, once a silent monument to his grief, had become a place of warmth and laughter. Tala approached him one morning and told him their youngest, Naya, had injured her ankle and needed more time to heal. Jonah didn't hesitate. He told them they could stay as long as they needed. A slow smile touched Tala's lips. In that moment, Jonah knew something had changed forever. The loneliness that had once lived in every corner of his home was finally losing its grip. The days that followed settled into a gentle rhythm Jonah had never imagined for himself. Morning light spilled across the ranch as the women tended to their tasks, moving with a quiet harmony that made the land feel fuller, warmer, almost alive. Jonah often found himself watching them from a distance, wondering how 5 strangers had managed to sew themselves into the empty fabric of his life so quickly. But it was Tala who lingered most in his thoughts. She carried wisdom in her silence, strength in her calm, and an unspoken understanding in her eyes that left Jonah feeling exposed, yet comforted. Each evening, they gathered around the fire. The flames painted soft gold on their faces, and stories drifted into the night air like delicate threads. The women shared fragments of their past, never dwelling on pain, always focusing instead on laughter, survival, and memories worth keeping. Jonah shared pieces of his own story too, hesitant at first, then slowly opening like a stubborn door warmed by sunlight. The more he spoke, the lighter he felt, as though the stories he had buried for years were finally given space to breathe. One night, Tala handed Jonah a carved wooden pendant. It was simple but beautifully shaped, the edges smoothed by careful hands. Jonah looked at it with confusion until Tala spoke. "It is for protection," she said, "not protection from danger, protection from forgetting that you still have a life to live." Her voice was a whisper, but the meaning struck him with force. For years, Jonah had lived as though his story had ended. Now, with that small piece of wood in his hand, he felt the first hint of a new beginning. As Naya's ankle healed, Jonah sensed the women preparing for a difficult decision. He caught them speaking quietly in the evenings, their faces thoughtful. He tried not to let fear settle in his chest, but it crept in anyway. He had grown used to their presence, the laughter, the warmth, the sound of footsteps across his porch. The ranch no longer felt like a tomb of memories. It felt like a home, and the thought of losing that terrified him more than he wanted to admit. One morning, Tala approached him as he fed the horses. Her expression was unreadable, calm but serious. "It is time to decide our path," she said. Jonah's hand froze on the saddle strap. He didn't look at her at first, afraid his face would reveal too much. He asked if they planned to leave. Tala didn't answer immediately. Instead, she stepped closer, her voice softer. "We do not desire to be a burden. You opened your home out of kindness, not obligation. We wish to honor that." Jonah turned to face her fully, his heart pounding harder than any storm he'd survived. "You were never a burden," he said, the words slipping out before he could soften them. Tala watched him closely, her eyes searching his. Jonah swallowed, his voice quieter. "I thought I wanted a quiet life, but you brought something here I didn't even know I needed. You brought life back into this place, back into me." The silence between them stretched, warm and fragile, like something sacred. Tala took a slow breath, her eyes softening. "And what do you want now, Jonah Avery?" He didn't hesitate. "I want you to stay, all of you, not out of duty, not out of fear, but because this ranch feels like home with you in it." Tala looked away briefly, collecting her thoughts, then met his gaze again with a gentle certainty. "Then perhaps it is our home too." That evening, the decision was made together. The women chose to stay not as guests, but as partners in rebuilding the ranch and shaping its future. Jonah felt a weight lift from his chest, replaced by a hope that ran deeper than anything he'd felt in years. For the first time since losing his family, he allowed himself to imagine a life that wasn't defined by solitude or sorrow. The seasons changed. Spring washed over the valley with fresh grass and birdsong, and the ranch flourished. Jonah worked alongside the women each day, learning their ways while sharing his own. Tala became his closest companion, offering guidance, strength, and a presence that grounded him like roots in the earth. They spoke often, sometimes about the land, sometimes about the past, sometimes about nothing at all. Yet every conversation felt like another stitch tying their lives together. One afternoon, as they repaired the roof of the old storage shed, a sudden windstorm swept across the valley. Jonah grabbed Tala's hand to steady her, and for a moment everything fell silent around them except the sound of their breathing. When the wind passed, their hands remained intertwined. Tala did not pull away. Jonah didn't either. Their eyes met, and in that quiet exchange, something unspoken shifted into certainty. Neither of them rushed it. Neither needed to. The bond had been growing since the day she arrived at his fence line. Over time, their connection deepened into a gentle romance born not from desperation, but from respect, trust, and the slow healing of two hearts that never expected to find each other. They shared tender moments beneath the cottonwoods, walked the riverbanks as the sun set, and found comfort in the simple act of being near one another. Tala's presence softened Jonah's hardened edges, and Jonah's steady kindness gave Tala a place where she felt seen, valued, and safe. Years passed with a quiet joy neither of them had ever known. Travelers who passed through the valley often spoke of the ranch that stood strong between the cliffs and the river, a place filled with laughter, warmth, and a strange, beautiful harmony. They spoke of the rancher who once lived alone, now surrounded by a family that was never bound by blood, but bound by something far stronger: choice. In the evenings, Jonah sometimes stood at the edge of the porch, watching the firelight dance across Tala's face as she sat with the others. He would touch the wooden pendant she gave him long ago, a reminder not of protection, but of awakening. And he would whisper softly to himself, grateful for the truth he had learned, that life has a way of surprising even the loneliest of souls, that some people enter your world without warning. And that the 5 Apache women who walked into his life brought not just shelter and companionship, but a future he never dared imagine. And in the quiet glow of those nights, Jonah finally understood. He had not been saved by fate alone. He had been saved by the courage to open his gate, the grace to open his heart, and the love that grew from 5 footsteps in the desert.